Hi there, and welcome to another exciting session of training provided by Quicksoft. In this series of chapters, we're going to start a new journey which is Oracle Human Capital Management or HCM. We'll go through all the modules which are available, but step by step. I don't want to overwhelm you with all the details of all the modules first. We'll start with uh, simple modules first, and then once the core configuration is done, then we'll move on to next steps to add on to the core configuration. Okay, so let's start. So when you talk about HCM, in HCM these are all the various so-called modules are available, and these are different pillars which we have: human resources, workforce rewards, workforce management, talent management, and work life. Yeah, different modules are grouped under different pillars. Yeah, but they all work hand in hand and provide data to each other depending upon what is the usage. For a start, I will not go into each and every module. I will just start with a base configuration which is core HR, and then once we finish core HR, then we move to next steps so that you can easily understand what are the components. Because if I go through each module, you will understand most of the modules are self-explanatory if you look at the name itself. But we will not go into details at this stage. We'll go step by step, and once you reach at that stage, then I will explain you more about these modules. Okay, so let's start our journey for first pillar, which is human resource and core HR. Core HR is the foundation module for HCM, where all the base setups, which are the driving factors for running HR, are defined. Let's start with the core HR. Now in the core HR, these are the key processes which are executed as part of HR. You define a new person, and once a person is defined, person management covers basically all the maintenance aspect of the employee record. Mass update is a feature which is useful for doing a mass update. For example, uploading bulk data, uploading bulk changes, you can do through this one. Document records, this is used to maintain all variety of document which are employee related document which we want to maintain in the system along with the employee. Workforce processes are the processes which we execute in the system, which could be various approvals, checklists, and journeys. And workforce structure is where we actually define all those foundation configurations. Let me share with you what are the key workforce structure which we define. For example, let's say think about setting up an human resource department in your own company. Yeah, if you are the boss of the company, what kind of structure you will have in a company? Yeah, you will definitely have some departments like finance, human resource, planning, your inventory department, logistics. You'll have some department, and then when you ultimately you're going to hire people in your company to do the work, then you're going to assign them some task. It could be finance manager, it could be warehouse manager, it could be accountant, it could be IT officer. These are various jobs which you need the employees in your company to have so that you can run your operations. Yeah, and then different people in your company may have different seniority level. Yeah, depending upon the role or the job they're doing. So you may have assigned want to assign certain grade to them so that you can decide how much should be the salary given to them. Then you can assign them the grade. Then you may have different locations of your office, then you also want to assign locations. So these are some of the key masters which you define in the system. Yeah, and then the main activity before for the HR is basically when you start the work is hiring new employees in the system. So you can define employees which could be to different type. They could be permanent employees, there could be contractors. Pending workers is something which we define for the people who we may have given an offer, they haven't joined, so but we expect them to join. And non-employee could be anybody in the company who could be volunteer doing some work for you. So these are different categories of employee which we define in the system. Then managing data of existing employees. So when you hire an employee, there could be variety of changes which you do against the employee record. You could be transferring employee from one office to another office, or one department to another department, or you could be promoting based on the work done by the employee, or depending upon certain situations, you could be terminating the employment contract or relationship with the employee. So these are some of the key uh, personal management tasks which you do in the system. Then as I mentioned, mass update of HR data. You could be uploading a huge amount of data in the system. Sometimes when you're migrating from one system to other system, you can use upload employees, or maybe making some location changes. If you're changing office from one location to other location, then you can do location changes, or even global transfer of certain group of employees from one place to other place. Yeah, these are all can be very easily done in the system using either spreadsheet, which are ADFDI templates, or you can use the HDL, which is HR data loader. This is a process for uploading data in HR. We can use either of those, which is, and the goal primarily is to make it simple for you to make mass or bulk changes in the system using these processes. Then regarding document records, you can maintain all documents which are crucial for which we have received against the employee, which could be the educational certificates of the employee, experience certificates, or identity cards, all variety of document which HR needs to maintain for the employee for the record purposes. Those can be recorded in the system. And then in the managed workflow, workforce processes, there are various processes which we execute in the system, which is approval, checklists, and various journeys, which are primarily again checklists, but step-by-step execution process defined for employee to easily follow those. So these are some of the processes which we'll go through. Once we reach into the configuration and setting up for each and every steps in this, then we'll go into more details and understand it much better. Now, to be able to use human resources module, you need some key roles. These are again the standard roles I'm talking about: human resource specialist, human resource manager, and human resource analyst. So basically, as you can see from the name itself, analyst is primarily using more. If you are familiar with the other modules like finance and all, the analyst role is primarily to inquire, generate reports, but cannot make any changes. Yeah. So, but it can do all that kind of inquiry based on the necessary access given to the analyst. The key data management roles are human resource specialist and human resource manager. Without having these roles, you will not be able to make changes in the HR data. So if you look at from HR perspective, what do you do in HR? You hire a person, then you manage the employee record, you or maintain documents related to employee, then you also assign what are the benefits available to employee, then you maintain those benefits, as I mentioned in the previous slide, transfer, promote, and all those things. All those efforts or the transaction in the system can be done by human resource specialists. And if you look at the human resource manager role in the system, it's very similar because it inherits what human resource specialist does. So only the key difference which I found was primarily, which is HR manager's role is look at more at a higher level. So human resource specialist could be restricted by certain data security policies, but HR manager has full access to all the data so that they can maintain changes in any data. But otherwise, role perspective, there are very similar roles which you can use to have access to maintaining HR related data. Now in this example, I'm assuming that the configuration which we have done, yeah, so all the financial aspect of the configuration is already completed. Yeah, so these are whatever I've written a prerequisite before setting up HR. These are the bare minimum setups which are required before we actually focus on core HR task. Yeah, the primary ledger must have been defined, which is currency, calendar, chart of account, accounting method. These are 4 C's. This should be configured. Once this is configured, basically your base financials is already configured, which will include your legal entities, business units, and the reference data set. So once all these 4 are configured, I'm assuming in this again that those who are attending this are familiar with Fusion financials and understand all this, because if you are not, then you should look at our lectures in financials, then you can understand all this, because this is a big chapter in itself to cover. Yeah, so I'm just going with the assumption that you guys understand that. If you don't, then please refer to those chapters. Once this is set up, then basically we are all set to start configuring our HR. Now from workforce structure perspective, from base HR configuration perspective, this is something which we need to configure before we start recording employees in the system or going to next level of processes. So we'll just have to configure enterprise HCM information. This is the core information which HR, so you can say the base information for HR on which your whole HR system will function. There are a lot of setups in this which I will be covering in detail, which you need to configure as part of enterprise level. So whatever you configure here, we are saying this is at enterprise level configuration, which means you can have only one in the system. Yeah, whatever we configure here is something which we may have many legal entities, many different businesses, but the assumption is that we are going to use same for all those entities, whatever we configure at enterprise HCM level. But in real life, there could be changes when we go from one legal entity to other legal entity. That's where the legal entity HCM information will default information from HCM enterprise level, and then you have the opportunity to change certain information at legal entity level as well. Yeah, Then we define locations, which are primarily your offices where you operate, job, family, and job. We'll cover this in detail when we read this chapter. And positions, grades, grade ladders, grade rates, department, and organization tree. Once we complete all this, then basically we would have completed the basic configuration for HR, and then we can go to next step of doing next setups of HR. Okay, so I'll go start with enterprise HR HCM information. As mentioned, this is the key information for HR implementation. It controls lot of setting, yeah, and then all those settings are really crucial for your HR implementation. And when you're doing implementation, you should discuss in detail with your client and explain them what is the purpose of each particular configuration is, so that they can give you the right information back. This very much affects how your product behaves. Depending upon the configuration which you do here, your product will behave according. So you have to be very careful doing the settings. Yeah, as I mentioned, some of these settings can be overwritten at the legal entity HCM information level, so that you can control as based on the things which are different at a legal entity level. You have to give a name to your enterprise. In this example, I'm giving Quicksort Corporation, and work days information. For example, what are the working hours? 9 to 5, 9 to 6. Depending upon that, you can set those in this configuration. As this setup is very long, this screen is very long screen and a lot of options there. So what I will, and you will see a lot of screens which I will also share with you. And what I will do, I'll cover one screen here, and then I will cover the rest of the screen in the application, so that you are able to relate what I'm talking. Okay, so in enterprise information, we also define worker number generation. Now worker number, we also have something called person number in HR. So what is the difference in worker number and person number? Worker number basically not used in Fusion. It's primarily for those customers who are moving from EBS to Fusion, and they want to migrate the same setup which they had in EBS. They had worker number and person number to connect your contingent and permanent employee. So basically, in all simplicity, we can assume this is not used. This is the key thing which you need to understand: employment model. Yeah, this you need to set up at enterprise structure level and can be overwritten at LE, but this is crucial to understand. 2-tier or 3-tier. What is a tier 2 or 3? Now, for any employee which you hire, you define a work relationship in that employee. There are sections of data which you maintain. When you say work relationship, right, there's a certain thing which you define in one section, that's called work relationship. Certain things you define in other section, which is called assignment. So keep it simple. Don't try to be confused by the jargons, work relationship and assignment and all those things. Just keep it simple as you understand. Work relationship, basically in this you say who is the legal employer, because every employee must belong to a legal entity. What is the legal entity name you have? That's why I remember I was saying the legal entity setup must have been completed. What is the employee type? We talked about employee type, employee or contingent worker. We can look at employee type, hire date of the employee, and the country where we're hiring the employee. There's some more, but these are just the key thing which you define as part of work relationship, which makes legal guy employer and employee related. Now once you hire the employee, you assign him the work. Yeah, then you assign, okay, employee, you're part of this legal entity. Now you will work under this business unit, and this will be your job, your grade, your department, whether you're regular or you're temporary, full-time or part-time, and whether you're a manager, because if you're a manager, then you'll be having some staff reporting to you or your staff. Yeah, so this is 2-tier. Now what's the difference in 2-tier and 3-tier? Now in 3-tier, basically we have work relationship, which is same as before, your assignment, which is same as 2-tier. Now what is the third thing? Third thing is called employment terms. So employment terms are basically different aspects of employment, which are job role, compensation, working hours, benefits, and some more. Yeah, so if you have this kind of relationship, then you define 3-tier. Otherwise you could define 2-tier. Yeah, if you have multiple employment terms which you can define, if you have that requirement for same employee, then you define this. Otherwise you just need 2-tier. Now within 2-tier or 3-tier, you also have single assignment or multiple assignment. Yeah, so what is it? Single assignment? Only one assignment record exists. Yeah, whereas which is typically used in most organizations, because when I join a company at one time, I'm just given one job which I do. Yeah, whereas in multiple assignment, you can have multiple assignment record. Yeah, I could be project manager for 50% of my time. Rest of the time I could be doing some other work. So this is a new evolution of work which is happening, because you could be in one company, you could be given multiple jobs. Yeah, So depending upon what kind of structure you have in the organization, then you can define this, whether you're two-tier single assignment, two-tier multiple assignment, three-tier single assignment, three-tier multiple assignment. So you can look at all those options as required. Yeah. You can also specify whether employment terms are allowed to be overwritten at assignment. So whatever terms are given, when the same will be defaulted when you do the assignment part, but can those be overwritten? Yeah. Later when you see in the screen, right, you will see when I use three-tier model for an employee, when I go to employee setup, there's another tab gets created, employment terms. Whereas when I do two-tier, this tab does not exist. Yeah. So that the new tab allows you to define additional setups. People group flex field structure, this is optional, and we can use it if you want to define any more additional key information which the standard screen does not provide. You can define that flex field structure and use it accordingly. You can, for simplicity, you can treat it same like we have pay groups in AP. You can call it people group in HR. Now salary level, how to identify what salary to be given to employee, whether it was identified from assignment or terms. Yeah, so it all depends upon how you want to define this. For two-tier, it will always be assignment, and for three-tier, you can choose its terms. Now let me show you the same in the screen so that you can understand how this small section of data looks like in the screen. So to access HCM information, I search for HCM information in financial and go to manage enterprise HCM information. So this is your enterprise HCM information screen. So this is already configured in a demo environment, but if you are doing it first time, you will have to enter all this information. Put the start date, give name of your company, status active, action reason you can leave it blank. So I'm just focusing on main, give the address. Now here comes the workday information which I mentioned earlier. What is the work time? From time to time you can mention. Standard working hours. These are again optional information. You can populate this if required. Yeah, working of hour frequency, weekly, monthly, depending upon what you have, you can specify. Now this is where the key information which I mentioned in the enterprise information just now what we saw. Worker number generation, you can choose it automatic, or you can just, depending upon what you need, or you can say not used, which is fine. It will not affect any of your process. Employment model, this is all what you need to choose. Yeah, if you have a need. See, most of the time what will be applicable in all implementation will be two-tier single assignment. Yeah, so that is what is applicable in most of the implementation, because they have one employee is only given single assignment, and allow employment terms over at assignment. So once it is defaulted based on this one, can you change certain terms at if in case of three-tier, can you change that? You can choose accordingly. People group flexible structure, this is also optional, but if you have defined, you can set up that. Salary level, assignment or terms. Now, global person number name language, you can choose as appropriate to you. Person number generation method, automatic upon final save. This person number generation method, is it automatic upon final save, automatic prior to submission, or manual? Yeah, what is the difference? When you do automatic prior to submission, that means the moment you go to screen, it will, before you save and submit, it will create a number, which is fine. But in case sometime it does not save correctly, the number is lost. So it is always preferred to choose automatic upon final save. When you actually finish all the information and you finally save the record, that time the number gets generated, so that you already know everything is final. Yeah, or manual, if you are pulling the data from some external system, then you choose it manual, because whatever number defined from that system, that can be pushed into this system as well. But if you are generating number here, you can then specify initial person number. This will be the first number system will use, then the system will keep adding into this as required. Person creation duplicate check. Now these are all the various variations you can try. So if someone trying to create similar information, then it will check for duplicate. For example, last name, first name, date of birth, national ID. Now this may be same in some scenario, but national ID cannot be same. Yeah, so that can be checked. So you can pick as appropriate the control which you want to put here. So once you are done this setup, then you go to currency support information. You can specify the exchange rate type to be used for any transaction processing, if you're doing any foreign currency transaction, or for reporting conversion, what rate type to be used. Yeah, you can maybe assume as a corporate. Next important setup is user and role provisioning information. Yeah, now the user creation option ensures, or the option is controlling that what should happen when you create an employee or you create a party in the system. Party is, if you are familiar with trading community architecture, TCA, That's why we create all the party, because in the system everyone is initially defined as a party, and later depending upon the relationship with the party, it is it's converted into whether party is a customer, supplier, or a person. Yeah. So if they're saying when somebody creates an employee in the system, what should happen? These are all default. You can choose default as it is. Both person and party users are created, none is created, or only party users are created. Depending upon option you choose, the system will create necessary record automatically. That means if I create an person, then the user record, the user who logs in, user ID, password, that will be created automatically by the system, and also party record in the system for TCA will be created automatically. And if I choose party only, then the user account will not be created, and only party account will be created. Then why do we choose this option? This option is chosen when maybe we are having some external IDM system from where we'll be pushing the user record directly in the user creation. We don't want it to be automatically created by the system, so that's why we choose none or party users only. And then later somebody will define either manually or will integrate from some external system to create the users and link those users with the employee record. So depending upon the organization need, you can choose the option accordingly. Next one is user account role provisioning. Very similar options, both person and party user, none and party user. So what's the difference again here? Because existing users both acquire and lose roles as specified by current role provisioning rules. We define role provisioning rules in the system, using which the moment a user is created, system knows which roles to be automatically assigned or to be removed from the particular user. Yeah. So you may request some roles which should be automatically assigned. So whenever a person is created, if they're very standard role, then you don't need to manually go and request for those roles. Those can be automatically assigned by the system the moment a user record is created. These are called auto provisioning rules. Yeah. The key thing to remember here is when you define auto provisioning, system will automatically, based on the rules, assign those roles to the user. Yeah. But if you remove something, and when the next time auto provisioning process runs, it will not only remove only for new people, it will remove from everyone to whom that rule is applicable. So be careful about this aspect. So this, if I choose both person and party, so role provisioning or deprovisioning will happen both for person or the party. If I choose none, if I choose party only, it will happen only for when a party user is created. And if I choose none, yeah, so what will happen? No roles will be assigned to the user, and by standard system will automatically mark this user as suspended, because if no rules are assigned to a user, then user account is suspended automatically. So there should be some rules so that a user account when get created can stay active. Now user account maintenance, very similar options here as well. Yeah, as I said, these are default. You can leave it as it is, but I'm just explaining you what is the purpose of those. So by default, a user account is suspended automatically when the user has no roles, as I mentioned earlier. Generally, this kind of thing happens when upon termination. Yeah, so the user is, but if the once you terminate, user account will be suspended. But if you rehire that person, the user account will be automatically activated by the system as well. Yeah, so again the same option, depending upon what you choose, system will take the necessary action accordingly. User account creation for terminated workers. Now if you are migrating data from some external system, the user account shows this terminated user. Should you be creating a record for that user or not in the system? This again is depending on organization, whether you want to import those records in your system, and if you're importing, do you want to create a user record also? That if you create, then if you try to rehire that user later, then the employee record will be also activated automatically. Keep external user role on termination. Yes, options are yes or no. Now what are external user roles? So as I mentioned, if you have role provisioning, there will be role assigned automatically by the system depending upon the rule to which role the rule qualifies. But there, on top of that, there could be some roles which are assigned directly to a particular user, not assigned by the system. Do you want to keep those? So upon termination, whether to keep those externally assigned or not, you can choose accordingly. Yeah, I don't see a scenario where I would keep the user who are terminated. There's some external roles which are, while I'm removing the main roles, but still there's an option available. If you need, you can use it. Global payroll element information to archive. So this is used for payroll archival process. When we reach about payroll and archival, then we can cover that. At this stage, we don't need to discuss much about this. Position synchronization configuration. In the system, we can have defined positions or jobs, though position is optional. But if you define position in the system, and position will also be assigned to the employee. So when a position synchronization is a process which we need to execute. When that process is run, if you enable position synchronization, then it can execute certain actions. Yeah, but if you enable this, then you can choose what are the attribute which assignment level should be updated from position, because all these attributes are also available at when you define a position. These attributes are also available to this position. So what type? These are all the attributes for the position. So when you enable this synchronization, you can choose what attributes at your assignment level should be updated from your position. Yeah, so that even you can choose this whether use position manager or use position hierarchy, because when you define position, you also define the line manager in the position as well, in the position master. So if you choose position manager, then this will, when you do synchronization, the assignment with the line manager defined for the position is done to the assignment record based on the position. Yeah, you can use this option if you are not using the HCM position hierarchy. Yeah, and you want to manually maintain the manager at the position level. Yeah, other option is use HCM position hierarchy. Now what's the difference? So in HCM position hierarchy, the manager on the assignment with the incumbent of the parent position in the position hierarchy. You specify who is the incumbent for the parent position. Yeah, who is the receiver of this position. I'm showing you the position screen. This is a position accountant, and for this accountant there's a manager. So if you choose position manager in the HCM setup, for example, if you choose position manager, then it will use this field, whatever value you give in this field, and update the line manager field in the assignment for the employee. So that means, let's say employee has X, manager X assigned, but if there is Y here, it will go and update Y in the assignment. Yeah. Now what if you choose position hierarchy? Yeah. So if you choose position hierarchy, what you should do also, you should hide this field so this doesn't create any confusion, because you have manager and then you also have incumbents. Yeah, so you should, if you choose position hierarchy, this manager parent position manager, whatever the position, there is also something called position hierarchy in the system, which you will see later. It will take the who is the parent position manager incumbent assigned, it will take that and update in the line manager of the particular employee in assignment. Yeah, all this will be updated depending on a flag which you check. Now the last one here says allow override at assignment. So whatever has been defaulted from position, should you or do you want to allow changing those at assignment level or not? This is again depending about standardization which you want to maintain. If you want to control at position level everything defaulting from there, not allowed to change, then you can force that not allow. But if you think that we in our scenario majority will follow, but sometime we need to change, then you tick this option. This again depends if you're using position hierarchy. If you don't use, then you can just leave this option disabled. You don't need to do anything, because position in the system is optional. Job is mandatory. Yeah, you will learn later when I talk about job and position chapter. Next one is position incumbent validation. Now what is position incumbent validation? Basically in the system, if you have an organization where positions are controlled, yeah, so we want to make sure that in this particular department only this number of positions should only remain. There shouldn't be any more positions. So if somebody is transferring from X department to Y department, and in that department a position does not exist, doesn't have the headcount available, then if you enable this validation, then system will not let you define that transfer. Yeah, so this is how you ensure that it does not allow if the FTE or the full-time equivalent headcount is not available in the department. Okay. Next section is the employment configuration option. This is all about controlling employment. Guided flows, future dated record validation. So basically what this controls is whether the assignment record can be updated with future dated or not. If you choose none, then no validation is performed. If you choose warning, a warning will be shown that is a future dated. If you choose error, then you will not allowed to proceed. Validation for existing subordinate termination. If you are terminating someone who has direct report, should you allow them to proceed? Error, none, or warning. The similar option can be chosen. Now employment approval region, whenever anybody is hired for approval part, whether approvers list of approvals is shown expanded or collapsed, you can choose accordingly. This is to ensure that screen is optimized. default enterprise seniority date, Y or no. If you choose Y, then it will calculate the seniority date for the employee from the first hire date. Let's say you hire some employee, then you terminate, then you rehire another date. But when system calculating seniority, if you set it Y, it will calculate for a first hire date. If you choose it no, then this information is left blank. Recruiting integration, this functionality currently not in use. This will be for future use. Automatically convert pending workers. Whenever you define workers as pending workers, yeah, then there's a process which you need to run to convert pending worker to actual workers. So if you set this to uh, Y, then all those by default will be set as Y. So when the program runs, all those pending worker will be converted. But if you set it to no, then none will be picked automatically. You have to pick and choose which worker you want to convert to the permanent. Next is HCM connection configuration. HCM connection is a new directory user experience which allows you to see the your co-workers various public profile information skills like interest, work location, time zone, department, organization chart, etc. So using this, the manager will be able to see what are the staff they have, and they can have different views which they can see for their co-workers. Yeah, and then you choose which department tree. Yeah, so this based on the department tree which you maintain in the system, you can choose, and then using that department tree, it will show you the employees who are under that department. Position budget configuration is a new feature which has been released recently, which allows you to budget for position, and whenever a user tries to create a position or update budget for a position, then system will validate whether FTE, headcount or amount is exceeding, and depending upon the type you choose warning or error, then if you give warning, it will give warning to user. If you give error, then it will not allow the user to proceed. Then this position budgeting can be done also uploaded using the HDL format, and then you can decide how you want to budget. You want to do budget at business unit level, department level, location level, or a combination of either of these three. Maybe if you choose business unit, department and location, that means you will be controlling this budget by these three attributes, and you'll be uploading this using these three attributes as well. Yeah, and then what is the currency for the budget, you can choose as appropriate for your organization. What is the budget period start date and budget period start month. If you choose first, let me see the first day of your budget and January, then system will automatically calculate the 31st December is calculating the end period for the budget at 31st December. And if you choose first and choose April here, and it will calculate 31st March. Yeah, so this is how it calculates the budget financial year. Then you specify how you want to what should happen if the FT is exceeded, headcount is exceeded, or the budget amount is exceeded. Then depending upon the sign you choose, system will behave accordingly, whether to give warning or to show an error message to the user. All the options which I showed in the screen are available in this PowerPoint deck as well, so that you can understand how the configuration is done, what are the options, what each option 2 tier, 3 tier means. And once you do person level setup, what number generation, what each option will do. Actually, I have explained all this to you in the actual screen. So these are just to walk you through what all you have seen. You have seen user role and provisioning option. What happens upon user role creation when user account is created automatically or has to be done manually. And user and role provisioning information for account role, automatically role assigning based on the rules which you can define. Yeah, and when you maintain some user, suspend some account, what action should be taken and when. Then whether to keep external user role information, because I explained to you there can be roles which are automatically assigned and there are additional roles which are created. Those are called external roles. So you can choose whether to keep those or remove. Then we talked about position synchronization, or what happens when you choose position synchronization. If you are using positions, then what happens with if you choose use position manager or use position hierarchy, how the manager is replaced based on the logic. Yeah, these are various attributes which can be updated by position synchronization. Then there are additional employment configuration options which we have gone through in detail in the screen, so you can understand what are the options which to be enabled and when. HCM flow and document type mapping is primarily to restrict the list of document type which user can download using the mass download. Letter generation is another option which we can use when you want to generate documents for a group of employees, and then we can make it the generation very easy by defining a certain report. There's a complete process how to do that, but by uploading using this HCM data loader and setting that generate letter, yes, we can actually generate mass letters for user at a very rapid pace and quickly. Position hierarchy configuration, whether you want to use position hierarchy or position trees. Again, if you're using position only, then this is applicable, otherwise not. But if you're using, then whether you want to use hierarchy or you want to use position tree, that you can decide. HCM business object editing, if it's enabled, as I mentioned, you can build groovy scripts to add some additional validation, defaulting rules and trigger. These are added using sandbox customizations. Workforce structure configuration, there's some additional configuration which we discussed, like position code generation, job code generation, and defaulting for location, evaluation system, and effective start date. You can set up these. Then minimum characters for searching all these various masters, because this is just done to improve the performance of the system. Because if you just search by not giving anything, it takes a while for a search to come. But this will help the search to zoom down on what you want to look for. Transaction console, this is a powerful screen which is used by administrators for troubleshooting. You can actually, by enabling transaction security, by default this is not enabled, and then you can put controls that who can see what, who can do what, you can decide that. HCM connection, as I mentioned there, connection is a useful directory experience which uses the department tree whichever you attach here, and then shows the various views of employee organization to the manager. So these are list of various setups which you need to do at HCM level, because once you finish this enterprise HCM information, this will set the base foundation for your HCM configuration to start. And then when you define legal entity, most of this configuration you can also override at a legal entity level as well. I will show you that in the next chapter. Okay, so in this chapter we have covered enterprise HCM information. In the next chapter we are going to cover legal entity information. The idea of going through this in detail was so that you understand the importance of each and every field you set up, so that when you configure, you based on the, and also when you do implementation, you can discuss and explain to your user what each setup means, so that they can provide you right information for configuration. With this, we come to the end of this chapter. Thank you very much for your time and attention, and happy learning.